I often find myself inspired by artists with numerous talents, people who seem to be able to combine their many skills and produce something of worth. People who are not scared to do many things and continue to learn throughout their entire lives. And people who are not scared to break away from the norms of society. Rosanjin, to me, was all of these things. Rosanjin is one of the most famous artists to come out of Japan because of his many talents, and he gained notoriety worldwide in the 1950s. Rosanjin led a very eventful and busy life of learning and practicing art, which led him to travel to many places outside of Japan. Coming from an extremely deprived upbringing, he strove to live a life of success and fine pleasures. Rosanjin was deeply in love with the natural world and used this as his inspiration for his art. He learned and practiced many things throughout his life, including calligraphy, wood carving, seal engraving, ceramics, lacquerware, and fine cuisine, amongst other things. By understanding the main events in his life journey, you will see how these skills all link together, and how he made such an impact with his work. Let me start from the beginning. Rosanjin was born on the 23rd of March, 1883, born to Kamigamo shrine priests in Kyoto. His father, upon finding out that Rosanjin was an illegitimate child, committed suicide, and soon after his birth, his mother abandoned him. Thereafter, he was passed to poor foster families that offered little care, and at the age of 6, was adopted by Kyoto woodblock engraver Fukuda Takeshi. Rosanjin wished to study painting after his graduation from elementary school at the age of 10, but was forced to apprentice at the local Chinese medicine pharmacy. Though unable to formally study painting during this time, in order to buy painting materials, he earned money through calligraphy competitions called Ichijigaki. He found out that he was really good and won many prizes. After his 10-year apprenticeship, at the age of 20, he found that his birth mother was living in Tokyo, and he moved there to practice calligraphy and meet with her. A year later, he received first prize for his work in a nationwide art contest. 2 years later, he apprenticed to renowned calligrapher Okamoto Ippei, and in 1908 he travelled to China to study calligraphy and seal engraving. To take this trip, he left his wife and child in Tokyo and travelled with his mother, Tome, to Korea. He found work in Korea at the Governor General of Korea's Printing Bureau as the secretary. After 3 years here in Korea and time travelling around China, meeting calligraphy masters and seal engravers, he returned to Tokyo to begin his own shop, specialising in exactly this. Slowly, his patrons became wealthy businessmen and influential figures. Through spending time with them, he grew an appreciation for fine art, antiques, and fine cuisine. Rosanjin gained notoriety as an engraver, and he engraved many signs for hotels. One of them was Kaga Yamashiro Hot Springs, on the outskirts of Kanazawa, where he stayed for a period of time, and was introduced to Suda Seika, the potter. This was his first taste of making pottery. Also in Kanazawa, he was introduced to Takichi Ota, who ran the luxury ryotei restaurant, Yamano. Here he began to learn about Washoku cuisine. In 1916, Rosanjin returned to Kappabashi near Ginza in Tokyo, and with his friend Takeshiro Nakamura, he started his antiques shop and appraisal business called Taigado. Rosanjin collected ceramics from Ming Dynasty China to Momoyama and Edo period Japan. He treated his customers to meals and served them on the antiques. And this soon became talked about, and so he started his members-only gourmet food club. Unfortunately, in the Great Kanto earthquake in 1923, his shop in Kappabashi burned down. He searched for a suitable place to start his gourmet club once again, and ended up renovating a building called Hoshigaoka Sario on the grounds of Akasaka's Hiei Shrine. He co-ran this members-only restaurant with the same business partner, Takeshiro Nakamura. He required an enormous amount of carefully selected tableware for his restaurant, so he started a pottery workshop in Kitakamakura called Seikoyo. With the help of famous pottery artist Toyozo Arakawa, he built his kiln, and over a number of years developed the land. He employed skilled potters to produce under his instruction. He said, "Nature is the source of beauty, and nature is also the source of good taste." At Hoshigaoka Sario, his main aim was to use only the freshest ingredients from around the country. He worked in a way where he used every scrap of food and desired his chefs to have no waste. There are stories that he even used the leftovers from dishes that had been ordered. His food was not overly worked and allowed the natural flavours of each ingredient to be the main focus. Prominent figures rushed to become members, and being a member became a status symbol. In 1935, they opened another restaurant in Osaka. This was really at Rosanjin's peak. But he became difficult to work with and was pushed out of the business in 1936. At 53, he was left only with his house and kiln in Kitakamakura, and out of necessity, he began his career as a potter. During his time working in his many businesses, he had made many influential friends, and these people rallied for Rosanjin's success. They put in large orders of ceramics. Restaurants came to him and placed orders to keep him going, and they also asked for advice on serving food. His pottery began to be exhibited alongside his calligraphy. During World War II, in 1942, his studio was temporarily closed, but he used this time to learn lacquerware in Kanazawa. Not a moment was wasted. In 1945, Hoshigaoka Sario was burnt down in an air raid. After the war had ended in 1946, Rosanjin began a shop in Ginza called Kado Kado Bibo, selling his works. Here, he was discovered by John D. Rockefeller III and his wife, who fell in love with him and his work. They later invited him to America to hold an exhibition. This exhibition opened Rosanjin up to the world, and he also travelled to Europe. Back then, travelling so far was extremely expensive, and Rosanjin estimated that he needed the equivalent of 100 million Japanese yen. Rosanjin tried to borrow the money for the trip through the restaurant friends he had become acquainted with in exchange for pottery. Even though he was travelling by invitation, he refused to accept money for the trip, as he thought it would be shameful to do so. Rosanjin gave lectures and donated his works to art museums and universities. During his trip, he also met Picasso and Chagall. These were not the only famous artists that Rosanjin became acquainted with. He also knew many within Japan, the most notable ones being Isamu Noguchi, who he travelled with to Kanashige Toyo's kiln in Okayama, where he made Bizen-style pottery. In 1959, he held his final exhibition, displaying only calligraphy at the Kyoto Art Club. Later that year, he passed away due to a liver infection at the age of 76. During his career, I believe Rosanjin strove to be the best. No matter what he put his hand to, he had a clear vision and refined opinion on his creations. His confidence in his work and varied skills brought him into influential circles, though this confidence and artistic view was often so passionate that it may have come across as arrogance and gotten him into trouble and caused arguments. There are stories of his competitiveness with other artists and his desire for notoriety. Despite what may seem like character flaws, his work was and still is some of the most well-known in Japan. I believe his strong character played a part in his success and lasting memory. Despite many hard times through his career, he stubbornly carried on and continued to learn and continued to work. Rosanjin's kiln in Kitakamakura still stands and is still used today, though his residence was moved to Kasama in 1965. Rosanjin's residence, Shunpu Banri-so, is open to the public. I plan to explore it in a future video over on my other channel, The Kiln House, where I am documenting a renovation project in Mashiko, the neighbouring town to Kasama. Shunpu Banri-so was actually originally moved from Fujisawa by Rosanjin himself to be used as his residence. Before Rosanjin, it belonged to the Ito family, who were powerful leaders of old Fujisawa city, then called Goshomi village. Rosanjin's clear appreciation of fine architecture and his renovations of buildings with a history for his businesses is another inspirational aspect to his career for me. In 1955, the status of living national treasure started to be awarded to artists around Japan. The artists that were awarded the honour were all seen to be reviving traditional crafts and techniques and made it their life's work to do so. The first artists to be awarded Living National Treasure status were Arakawa Toyozo, Kaneshige Toyo, and Hamada Shoji. Rosanjin actually politely declined the offer, alongside Kawai Kanjiro, Kyoto artist. This says something about his mischievous, proud character. He didn't abide by the norms in society, in behaviour or in career. Most artists in Japan stick to one lane their whole career. Rosanjin mastered many famous styles of Japanese pottery, including Mino, Shigaraki, Bizen, Kutani, plus he made blue and white and coloured porcelains inspired by Ming Dynasty China. Rosanjin also produced his own modern, more simplistic forms and displayed food in new and interesting ways, for example on large cutting board-like platters. His ability to rally forces and make beneficial, influential connections helped him to continue on his path as an artist, even during times of difficulty. Though I don't consider my life's goal to be anything similar to that of this famous creator, I do find myself inspired by his ability to learn and put into practice his skills with gusto and passion.